You look at numbers, you listen to experts and the IMF and all these people, they tell you the economy is great. Listen to regular people and you poll them and say, what's the economy like? They say, not so great, right? And we saw that in the election the other night. Doug Flynn is here, actually here in person. He's usually joining us remotely from Long Island. Flynn Zito, good to see you. It was like when you come in person to kind of continue a discussion we've had many times when you've been on the show, right, about that economy. Your view on that disconnect, because it's not just those numbers, there are many others. What was it, or what is it?
Yeah, I think the average person doesn't really key into the economic numbers. They key into maybe inflation, especially if you're paying rent and you have no assets. You're not really participating in those things that you feel might be good. What you're really focused in on is inflation, and you see that. And I think the message really didn't get through the way that they would have wanted to get through. And I think, obviously, on the Trump side, they did a much better job of driving home that inflation.
They could have had a good message to sell, in some ways, record high stock market, some of these numbers I showed. But I agree with you on inflation, because to me, that's always been a different kind of economic statistic, right? And we could talk about it because the Fed had a meeting and a decision today. But the weird part about inflation is when it gets better, it's still there, right?
That's right.
So it's not like prices are going down. Prices are just going up more slowly. So we always have inflation. So it's different.
It is. I think, you know, under Trump, the first Trump won, there was inflation was sub 2% towards the end of there. So that is almost like you didn't really, restaurants didn't reprint their menus when you have less than 2% inflation. And then they reprinted their menus and jacked everything up 40, 50%. So people feel that.
But we're back to about that now.
Now you're back down. So maybe, you know, but that takes time. It might take 1, 2, or 3 years. So you might end up with the same benefit to Trump again as things now are lower again. They did a good job of lowering. There's no question about it. We'll probably hit the soft landing, which is achieving that without a recession, which if you would have asked everybody a year or two ago, they all thought we were going into a recession, and we haven't had it. So,
well, here's the thing about Trump, and he'll obviously people say, oh, he'll take credit for it. You know, this is all me, and we know that's what's going to happen. But for the country's sake, you want the economy to be strong.
Of course.
This is 2 for 2 for him, inheriting a pretty good economy in terms of directional movement, and a lot of times that doesn't happen for presidents.
No.
We're looking at the past 25 years. Bush came in, the Clinton economy was probably at the end there a little bit, right? And then, of course, Obama came in, financial crisis. Biden comes in, pandemic. But the two times with Trump, the economy's been in a pretty good spot. And then the question is, what does he do with it?
I mean, the first go-around, if it wasn't for the pandemic, his numbers would have been much better. And I think, you know, a lot of it is exactly that. What are the policies that you put in place while you're in there? There's no doubt about it that they caused a lot of the inflation themselves by printing an ungodly sum of money, putting that into the hands of people. Maybe that kept GDP up and helped get out of recession.
You mean Biden or Trump?
Biden.
Trump at the end, but Biden too much at the beginning.
And then flooding everybody with $6 trillion. And then people lived on that. They drew that down and spent that, and perhaps that was money they didn't have. So you have to do it differently in this round, because you're not going to go add to the deficit another $6 trillion from that. Maybe we're going to add to it for other reasons. But it really does. Look, at the end of the day, he's got to increase growth, and that's what the Wall Street's getting real excited about, is the increase of growth there. That's the only way you're going to get out of this, because neither of these people, no matter who is going to win, is going to cut spending to any large degree. Perhaps with Elon, maybe they will do a little bit of cutting, but you know that remains to be seen. It's really about perhaps trying to grow our way out of that. That's the only way you're really going to do it.
Tax cuts, you hope it adds to growth. That was the plan the first time around. Now, the Federal Reserve just made a decision on interest rates a little earlier this afternoon, cutting the key interest rate that they have, the overnight bank lending rate, by 1/4 point, right? That was expected, nothing to do with the election or anything like that. But I do wonder, well, first of all, what you think they're going to do next, and how this new administration affects the Fed.
Well, he's had a contentious relationship with
pretty much everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Jay Powell and him have gone back and forth.
They have. And so, look, it's been expected that 1/4 point in December, another 1/4 point. What happens after that is really going to be key. If interest rates stay up and inflation starts ticking up, they can't keep lowering to the same degree. So maybe you only get a 1% more from here, or 3/4% more from here. Beyond that is what everybody's really keying into. What's going to happen beyond that? You want the economy to keep growing, but if it grows too fast, then you know that's a different recipe for the reason you lower rates is because you need to get the economy going. If the economy's going, you don't need to lower rates so much, and that's why the long-term interest rates have actually gone up while the Fed's cutting. The Fed can cut more on the short-term side. They will. We'll see how far they go. That's what we're looking for.
Trump wants to say in all of this. He said that before. He said it publicly. I want to be able to weigh in. You know, he doesn't want to set interest. Well, maybe he does, but he doesn't say I want to set interest rate policy. He says I want to have a say.
Sure.
Why is that not a good idea? I mean, nobody. the economists and everybody that looks at this basically says no, it needs to be independent.
Firmly believe that it should be independent. You don't look. You can say what you want to say, and they can take it under advisement like anything else.
Well, you could say it publicly, like you could say it publicly.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah.
But I think actually having control. That's why we have the separations we have. Powell came out today and said that if Trump asks for his resignation, he's not going to resign. He's going to fill out his term, which goes through the middle of 26.
Because they put him in for what, 10?
It's 4 years.
4 years
as the chair.
FBI director.
He can be on the committee still to 28, but 26 while for chairman. I seriously doubt he's going to get renewed, but I don't think he's going to get out of the way. So I think you just have to figure out how to work with him. He's going to have a lot of other things on his plate. I don't think he has to worry about weighing in on interest rates. Let that handle independent.
He probably won't say anything if the stock market's going up. That's usually what his gauge is on things, right? I mean, that's what he was the first time.
But he wants the credit for it. He didn't get credit for it. This is under Biden's administration. Yes.
Well, no, not this one. He says this is all him getting elected, which it might be. So we talked about that, whether there's some trade in the market now. People are optimistic about Trump. Why? They're worried. Why?
Yeah, they're optimistic about Trump because of the lower taxes, putting more money into people's pockets, the higher growth of stocks, deregulation, probably the biggest thing for the companies. If you're investing in companies, you want them to be able look
the tech world,
all of that. I think that's it. You do have to be concerned about if they spend too much and don't get the spending under control, that you could have higher inflation. That's it.
Higher inflation.
I think the growth can outweigh it if they do it right. So that's where we'll see what happens.
All right, Doug. Thank you very much. You didn't even need these notes you brought. Thanks very much. We appreciate it. Doug Flynn here in person, closing bell time on Wall Street.